Well, number one, thank you all for being here.
Mm-hmm.
This is really exciting and monumental. I'll just say that. Why not? Why not? I have a vision to create an environment with people who think alike in the sense of they want to grow personally, professionally, entrepreneurs. The list goes on and on. So to be able to have this come to fruition is so awesome.
Yeah,
So
dude, that's dope, man. It's alchemy at its finest, taking something that's up here and then making it real. That's freaking cool. Good
thank
work.
you.
Good
That's
work.
a good word. Alchemy.
Yeah.
My grammar is horrible. I say things where I'm like, man, that's so intellectual right there. And then when I look back on the podcast, I'm like, man,
That sounded stupid.
you're a retard. Should have, took English seriously. Now look where you're at. Trying to sound cool. And it didn't work out. But I like that word, alchemy. So what we'll do is we will just go around the room, introduce yourself, and let me think of something. I want one challenge you had to face within the past 7 days that you overcame. So we'll start to my right.
Whew, man. Hey, what's up? My name is Raven, also known as That's So Raven. Man, I faced a lot of challenges in the past couple days. I guess recently, the most important was my registration for my car. That was super overdue, and I was super stressed about it, but I got it. So yay.
All right. All right.
Okay. And you're coming from Denver, correct?
From Aurora. Yeah.
Aurora.
So it was about a 2-hour drive.
Is this your first time in Pueblo?
No. I've been on the Street Champs podcast a couple times. This is probably like my 4th time up here.
Welcome to the All In Show.
Right? Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Of course. I'm happy you're here.
Me too.
To her right, who do we have?
Hi, my name is Stephanie Burdick. I am the owner of Main Street Insurance, which is how I met Xander, who became my client. I looked today, actually, back in 2021. I remember him walking into my office. I won't air the dirty laundry quite yet. We'll see where this goes. But at a young
Okay.
time in his life, we've all kind of crossed that same path. I have too. So it's been cool to kind of watch you grow over the last few years and not let any of that adversity stop you. So I enjoy watching your journey. I just opened Clean Eats about a year ago now. And so I kind of got my hands in a few things at the moment.
Well, thank you for showing a little bit of kindness right there. We can air out the dirty laundry. It's not old news. I fucked up at that time. Man, was it? Yeah, I guess it was around that time.
Yeah. But I will say you came in happy as can be. You didn't let it
Hey.
put any damper in your step. So
I had a good referral.
that's
He
awesome.
was like, this is a good place to go to.
Well, we appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. I appreciate you guys for helping me out and continuing to help me out. I don't know what else you have within the dirty laundry.
I
We'll,
didn't say.
we'll see where this goes, you know?
Right. I got
Yeah.
the same dirty hamper. It's okay.
Okay, I think we all do
We
as
do.
human beings, right?
Absolutely.
And then to her right, we have.
Yeah, I'm Dean Trinkline. I own Muscle Monkey Functional Fitness. We opened in 2015. I've got a small mastermind called Black Rabbit Society, founders, entrepreneurs, and I'm getting ready to launch a new endeavor for consulting slash coaching, and that's just getting off the ground. In terms of a challenge this last week, probably building the back end out with all the AI components for my new endeavor. That's been a bit of a shit show. Trying to learn a new skill in about 4 or 5 days has been interesting to say the least. So that's my challenge.
Interesting. I've heard you own a marketing company.
Not anymore. I exited. I exited in October of last year. Yeah, I had a digital marketing agency where We ran meta ads, Google stuff, SEO stuff for med spas, cryotherapy centers, wellness centers. And I did that for about 3 years with the goal of building it up over 5 and selling it, but hit it about 2 years early. So that's kind of what that was, but no longer involved with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you sold it.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. I like that. I have a lot of questions, but we'll see where this takes us. I have some discussion planned, but before we get into any of that, Stephanie, what was a challenge you faced within the week?
I would say so. I've had my insurance agency now 13 years, and I'd like to say that I know a lot about insurance, but these wildfires have definitely challenged me in a new way that I've been approached with a lot of questions that I didn't know the answer to, and that does not happen very often with insurance. So finding the right way to comfort these people when there's really no way to, especially when it's not anything any of us have experienced. So just trying to, learn how to help these people, and not only insurance-wise, but also just being there for them as a friend and their insurance agent. So there's been a lot of learning curves this week, which has been good. It's been humbling.
The whole disaster is humbling. It really... I had to check my ego because of the whole situation. Little backstory. I did 2 seasons as a wildland firefighter, and then I went the EMS route. So seeing this whole large-scale incident, number one, it's in your hometown. Number two, as a firefighter, you're always wanting that big one. It's just something you get excited about. And I don't want to say you pray for it, but you just want to fight fire. So either as a municipal firefighter or a wildland firefighter, you want to go on an incident where it'll be memorable. So to see this happening in my own hometown, and to see all the thanks, the glory, everything in between, I'm like, man, that would be so cool. Not only that, but to be able to be on this incident and see that kind of behavior with fire up front. I don't know. I don't know if any fireman can explain it. There's just something about it, and it's such an adrenaline rush, and it's, in a sense, fun.
I mean, that's what you're trained for. So
Yes.
I think are you having a little FOMO?
Yeah, big time.
Yep, I can
Big
see
time.
it.
Big time. So I'm like, man, But it also hurts my heart because there's a lot. I can go into a huge discussion about this. So I'll just try to touch on it briefly. Again, I can't express it enough. It's in my hometown. So that makes it more emotional. And to know kind of the feelings of exhaustion, lack of sleep, having to wake up and do it the next morning again with minimal food and all these factors playing into it, it's like, oh my God, I feel for these guys day in and day out. They're right there experiencing danger. To them, it's not dangerous. To the community, they're like, oh my God, I pray for these firefighters.
And I heard like 3 lost their life, I think, in these fires.
That was on the Utah-Colorado border. So there's another big, large-scale wildfire
Yeah, I heard there's a couple.
where, 3 firefighters lost their lives. I don't know what specifically happened, but there's a set of rules. I wouldn't say rules, but they call them watchouts and standard firefighting orders. So they're put into place for a reason because of stuff like this. So over the years, all the deaths, all the incidents, all the injuries, everybody does an after action report, and you kind of learn what was the cause behind this. So they set in place, this list of guidelines, I guess, to follow in order to keep yourself safe. So I have a suspicion that something was not right. They didn't follow one of these guidelines. And then, they ended up losing their life due to some safety reason. And yeah, it's crazy. It is insane. I'm not going to get too much into it. I'm so passionate about it. I love it. I love the guys who are putting their life in front of danger. But yeah, I won't get too much into that. Raven, I want to ask you, what is your dream? That is the question.
My biggest dream, I'd say I really want to like buy a van or a bus and like renovate it, make it into a little tiny home and like live on the road and travel the world. I think that'd be really cool.
What is your dream as far as career-wise?
Definitely something with modeling. I model and bartend both full time. So I think making money for, doing those two things that I'm really good at would be really nice. I'd like to bartend like private weddings or private events. And I do have a couple, like magazines. I've been in a couple, but I want to do like be on the cover, I want to do something bigger with it. Be on my own runway show. I like modeling a lot.
Okay, I like that. How many jobs are you holding right now?
Currently 2.
Both bartending?
Bartending and bud tending. I work in a dispensary.
Okay.
So I sell weed too.
All right, a little background. That kind of leads into further discussion I have. So for you two being established business owners, I want to know, when you guys first started your business, what was the number one struggle you had to overcome, and how did you overcome it?
I can go first.
Stephanie.
So I worked for State Farm for about a year before I opened Main Street Insurance, and I knew how to sell insurance, but I did not know how to run a business. But I had been fired from the agent I was working for at the time. Completely blindsided me, and so in that moment, when I got fired, I told myself I was never going to work for anybody else ever again, just because I did get fired over a technicality essentially. And so at that time I was like, I will never ever do this and put myself in this situation. So again, I knew how to sell insurance, and I knew I didn't want to work for anyone else, but I didn't really know everything that went into owning a business, and between employees and having a building and the IRS and all that stuff. So I really just learned through the school of hard knocks, unfortunately.
What kind of emotions did you feel when you first started Main Street Auto Insurance?
I mean, I was scared. Absolutely. But I knew I could do it. I mean, I was confident there was just going to be, at the time I was 23 years old. So, I didn't have a family or any kids. So at least I knew I was only taking a risk on myself, and my decisions weren't going to impact anybody else. But, I didn't have a whole lot saved up, and just knew I had to hit the ground running. But I think not having a plan B or a fallback gave me like the push and the grit to grow as fast as I did. Because I think when you do have a little bit of a cushion, you may not push quite as hard as I did. So
how did you overcome that?
How? It depends on what problem we're talking about. It was really just trial and error, really. Kind of just taking each thing as it came at me. I don't really have an easy answer for that. I'm sorry.
I don't really think it is an easy answer. It's kind of another discussion in itself.
Absolutely.
You pointed out very crucial elements, or see, there I go again, using big words, and I probably don't even know the definition for them, but very important parts within that narrative that I think are very valuable in any person's life, but most importantly in entrepreneurship, is number one, taking that risk, and number two, learning through the school of hard knocks. I think you should take that risk, no matter what it is. Chase your dream. You're not going to know unless you don't take the risk, right? And the school of hard knocks is going to teach you, I would say, more about business and life than the university will.
Oh, absolutely.
That's just my opinion. There might be other people out there who disagree, but from my own experience and from my own conversations with people who have started their own business, it's all through the School of Hard Knocks. So I think that was super important that you touched on that. Dean, what about you?
Fuck. Challenges. Oh, God. Similar to Steph, really. We opened Muscle Monkey in 2015. And I think we did $22,000 that year. And then in 2016, we did like 27. So there was some growth, but I realized this isn't sustainable. I didn't become an entrepreneur for this. And then, but I didn't know shit about business either, or marketing or anything like that. I had that old mentality: if you build it, they will come. It doesn't work that way at all. Are you familiar with Alex Hormozy?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so in 2017, I saw one of his ads, clicked on it, and Muscle Monkey ended up being like his 7th gym in Gym Launch. So I just put my head down, got out of the coaching, went from being a technician to an owner. Stopped working in the business and on it, and I learned how to market. And in the next 6 months from there, we ended up doing like $270-some thousand. So we 10x'd our revenue from the year before in half the time. And then it just kind of kept building from there. But that was probably the biggest challenge and humbling component to it, was getting in. And everybody, when they become an entrepreneur, they think that they're going to fart and be a millionaire the next day. You know what I mean? But I think realizing that I didn't know shit was the humbling component. But then being like, okay, we need to figure this out. And then finding the right people that had been there and done that before to learn from. So you're not jumping over the same hurdle repeatedly was probably the best thing we could have done. And the coolest thing with that too is, you learn a skill set. Entrepreneurship is a skill set in and of itself. Not just all the bucket items like sales, marketing, finance, admin, operations. Entrepreneurship as a whole is a skill. Ask anybody who's been there and done it for any, duration of time, and they'll say the same thing, because the ones that don't realize that are no longer entrepreneurs or struggling exponentially, which is also part of the process. We're talking about naming problems. When you're an entrepreneur, you're almost a firefighter as well. You're putting out fires every day, maybe not literally, but the very definition of it is you're a problem solver. And there's an exponential amount of problems that you face every freaking day. So big challenges is like a 40,000 foot view, learning the skill of entrepreneurship, but then finding ways to handle the challenges that show up repeatedly throughout the day, every day, for as long as you are an entrepreneur, is a set and series of challenges in and of themselves.
So when you talked about Alex Hormozy, correct me on this, what is it he had going on with Muscle Monkey Fitness?
So he started a company called Gym Launch. And what they did was he paid an exorbitant amount of money, which we didn't have. We didn't have 2 pennies to rub together. But on that sales call with him, I talked him into letting us start the program, and I'd hustle my ass off and would get the money and pay as we went. And he went for it because we were, like I said, we were one of his first gyms in his company. But what he did was he taught you how to market, how to create an offer for your business, how to sell it. And then he taught you a lot of the operational things as well: management, leadership, so on and so forth, measuring what matters in terms of KPIs, key performance indicators. Just really paying attention to the data. We have a philosophy: what gets measured gets managed. Because if you're just flying blind like we did the first 2 years, the only stat I knew is what we did in revenue in those 24 months. That doesn't cut it. So he kind of taught us how to look at the data and make more informed decisions based on what those numbers gave us. So rather than throwing shit against a wall and seeing what sticks, you can be more predictable and forecastable. So that was really his whole thing with that. And then he went on to sell it for like $50 million, and that's when he started acquisition.com, and now he's pretty much a household name.
Okay, so just so I'm kind of putting all the puzzle pieces together. Gym Launch it was a company to help other gyms launch on their own.
Yes.
And Muscle Monkey is its own independent gym.
Yes.
That worked with Gym Launch to launch it.
Exactly. You can
Okay.
think of their stuff like he was kind of like a consultant, and the stuff they taught you, it wasn't like a franchise model. It was more like a licensing model. Like all the gyms underneath him were independent, and there were thousands. But they all kind of learned his concepts from him being a gym owner, having 6 gyms, selling those, so on and so forth, learning from what he did, what worked and what didn't. But everybody was independent.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense. I've heard of Gym Launch and many of his conversations in a variety of different podcasts. I'm unfamiliar with it, but now with a further explanation, it makes sense.
Sure.
That has to be an experience to be able to get consulting advice from Alex Hormozy.
Yeah, I've spent a lot of money since 2017 in mentors, coaches, consultants, courses, books, masterminds, so on and so forth. But working with them for the 2.5 years that I did, that was probably the most I've ever learned. And again, but I was also a rookie. So usually the first stuff you learn is the most, right? But I learned a lot of skills under him that I went on to use for other endeavors and other businesses, and that I still deploy today and use, every day in my day-to-day.
What would you say the number one skill that he taught you mentally that you use to this day?
There's 2 that he taught specifically. One, the marketing component, digital marketing, just a way to get what you do in front of more eyeballs, and then sales. And this is also good and bad. When I learned sales from him, he's a fucking pit bull. And the way he taught sales was nobody leaves, the consultation without giving you their credit card. And I ran that way for probably 6 months, and we made a lot of fucking money. But it felt gross. We actually had, this is some transparency here. I didn't sell this particular gal, but one of our salespeople did. She wanted to do this program so bad, she couldn't afford it. And she ended up getting on the program and donating blood so she could afford it. I didn't like that. That doesn't feel good. But sales is probably the most profitable skill one can have. I mean, we're all selling every day anyway, whether it's bud or booze or, your image and likeness, insurance, food, getting people on your show, so on and so forth. Likewise for these gentlemen over here. So that one in and of itself was probably the biggest one, but the marketing one was right up there with it. They're kind of 1A, 1B.
Both skill sets are very valuable to have, but also very hard to dial in on, especially sales. You talk with multiple entrepreneurs, and one of the things they have in common is the ability to sell something and sell it very proficiently.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you learn how to sell in any way, shape, or form, it could be knocking on doors, selling solar, cleaning products, cameras. If you learn how to interact with a customer and get the close, you can make a lot of money. You can be very profitable from it.
Well, where my mindset ultimately changed on that, because I did feel like the dirty used car salesman there for a while. It was financially rewarding, but mentally speaking, it sucked. When I started switching the money and the monetary side in my mind to the more impact you can make, because if you truly believe in your product, service, what have you, you want people to experience it, so you will try hard to get them in, not just so you can make the buck, but because you have so much faith in what it is that you do, you want them to experience it. So you sell differently. Instead of just talking on and on and on about your product and all the features, you ask more and more intelligent questions about their problems to make sure they're a good fit for what you have. And if they do, by the time the conversation's over, they're asking you how to get a hold of it instead of you having to pitch it to them and battle objections.
Purpose over profit, right?
100%.
I'll touch on that too. I think sales always has like a negative, connotation around it, I think, just because there are so many, you know, dirty laundry, you know, or not laundry, we're stuck on laundry, dirty car salesmen, like just that stereotype. But I, like, a lot of the people I've had in my office, I'm like, I always tell them, if anything, like, you're selling not yourself in a bad way, but you have to sell the confidence that people can buy that product from you, because there's really not a lot of things in life that only you are. Like, people want a gym membership, they're going to get a gym membership. They're going to get it from people do business with people they like. Same thing with insurance. Insurance, there's an office on every corner. But if you believe in that, like he said, if you believe in the product you're selling, and if you can sell like that people can trust you to purchase that product, I think that goes a lot further than what you're selling as a whole.
It's not always like what you say, it's how you say it type thing.
Yes.
Because anybody can say the same thing, but you have to bring like yourself. You have to prove your personality to really lock them in, to show them like, this is what I really need from you, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
The likability goes a long way.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, that's important when you're doing any kind of business in life. And if we're being transparent, that is a very tricky road I am trying to navigate with entrepreneurship, is finding out my purpose with all of this, and eventually will come profit. I would be lying if I said I didn't want to see any kind of profit from this in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, you'd be a damn fool.
I'd be a fool. Anybody in life would be a fool if they said, well, maybe I should change my words a little bit, because there's probably some people out there who are okay being broke and live the happiest life. I would say any normal citizen, even that's kind of going a little too far. Speaking from my own personal experience, and I can say a lot of people can relate to it, is I don't want to live paycheck to paycheck my whole life. I want to be able to create my own source of income and be my own boss in some way, shape, or form. So I would be a fool if I said I didn't do this for financial gain in the future. But I think it's very important that I figure out why I'm doing this, because one thing I've also noticed from entrepreneurs is they're not profitable because they're seeking a buck. They're profitable because they figured out their purpose, and with purpose brings profit. I had some guests on last week, and one guest was telling me, he's like, I don't wake up in the morning trying to figure out how to become a millionaire. I wake up in the morning trying to figure out how I can change people's perspectives on sleep. And that took me across the globe, and that eventually made me money. So, you know, that's kind of a road I'm trying to navigate. And I have a pretty good direction on where I'm going. I want to change people's perspectives on how they view life, either with life in general, their ambitions, their goals, their dreams, or entrepreneurship. I think if you have a positive attitude in life and you believe in yourself 100% and you tune out the noise, you can really do something with your dreams. So that's kind of like my purpose right now, is to share this with every single viewer, but with people across the world, and try to change at least one person's attitude on life.
Well, you know, I think you're doing it the right way, only because I've seen it so many times. People just kind of sit around and wait for their motivation and passion and purpose to come to them, rather than attempting something, laying a foundation, planting seeds, and then figuring it out as you go. Because what I find more often than not is you're doing this work, it comes to you faster. You know, when you're just kind of waiting and hoping, that really doesn't do anything. My favorite quote of all time is by Aristotle, and he said, "You are what you repeatedly do." And in order to figure out what or who you are, you have to be doing something. right? Doesn't matter what it is. So I've had numerous jobs, plenty of businesses. I wasn't passionate about all of them, but I found passion in what I was doing at a deeper level, right? So you ask somebody what they do and they tell you the surface layer of it. You know, I sell insurance, I own a gym, you know, I model, I bartend, so on and so forth. But usually what I like to say is I like to bring joy and confidence to people. When I look at it from that foundational level, it doesn't matter what the vehicle is. It makes it a lot easier to go to work. So if I'm in the gym environment, if I'm bringing somebody's confidence up and they're having a good time doing it, I'm doing what my passion and my purpose is. Same thing with the coaching, consulting, so on, so forth. I was a beer sales rep for a number of years. Now it's hard not to have a good time in that industry, and people are pretty happy, but they're not always confident. But I didn't get any joy out of that, you know. But through doing that, among several other things, I was finally able to kind of boil it down to those two things right now are kind of my passion and my purpose. But this should be evolution all the time. These things should change. If they don't change, in my humble opinion anyway, you're not evolving. And that's the only core truth, again, in my very humble opinion, of life, is basically evolve or die. You know, it's constant transformation and figuring it out. Nobody has this shit figured out, man. I'll be the first to tell you, the more I learn that I don't know shit about fuck. You know? But I have a damn good time doing it, you know?
Yeah, that's powerful, man. And what I take from that is don't be static, be dynamic. Don't do nothing, take action with whatever you want to do. If you say you want to franchise, I'm going to take Clean Eats for example, another Clean Eats, or you want to be a model, take the actions to do so. Put your face in the right places, open up those doors, because nobody's going to do it for you. Mm-hmm. And a friend told me this. She said, you know, whatever you're doing is like a plant. If you continue to water it, it's going to grow. The more you water it, the more it grows. But if you don't water it, it's not going to grow. So the more work you put into something, eventually it'll grow. But if you don't put any work into it, you know, it's not going to grow. So take action and put work into it. And I think that is one of the formulas in growth and reaching success, whatever your definition of success is. And that leads me to a question I have for everybody around this room. And that question is this: what do you see is the number one thing holding people back from from having success, butchering it here, having success in their own life? We'll start with you, Raven. I want to hear your point of view.
I think one of the biggest things that hold people back is just that lack of motivation. Kind of to piggyback off what you're saying, like waiting for that motivation to find you instead of really chasing it. That's something that personally holds me back sometimes, is just that lack of motivation. I always try to tell myself, like, chase the goal, not your mood. You know, when you wake up thinking like, oh my God, I don't want to go to the gym, you can't go off of that feeling. You should chase that goal, like that goal that you're going after. So definitely motivation, whatever it is, or some sort of distraction, whether it's social media or in personal life. I think that really holds people back.
So when you say that's a big influence within your own life, how do you think you can switch gears on that and change that perspective?
Probably, I don't know, because I feel like sometimes I flip between wanting a more stricter schedule and then being more easy on myself. Like sometimes I think I need to go to bed earlier, I need to wake up earlier, I need to do all these things in the morning before I go to the gym. I have to do all these things, which in return just stresses me out and not makes me want to do it. So I think not being so hard on myself. At first I had to go to the gym for an hour, and you know, sometimes when I don't feel motivated, I'm like, okay, maybe I can go for 30 minutes, because the more you do it, like that beats perfection. You know, consistency beats perfection any day. So I think probably just not being so hard on myself, trying to clear my schedule, but also just take things slow could help.
I agree with you on that. I think motivation is just a feeling, and you're not going to be in the mood every single day to do what you want, but to have that vision of your goal, to have that burning vision of where you want to be, it keeps me going. No matter where it takes me, it'll work out. I believe in it, but it keeps me going. And I think for anybody out there, they just got to put one foot forward and keep on keeping on. You know, it's hard. It's the school of hard knocks. You learn as you go. Nobody knows what we're doing. You just learn as you go. And I think the more you put pressure on yourself, sure, pressure creates diamonds, but you're also comparing yourself to yourself, what you could be. And one thing I heard from Gary Vee is it's okay to, you know, just take a lazy day or not do any work that day or just put it off until later and then get it done, because we're human at the end of the day.
Right. Sometimes doing nothing is doing something. That's a quote I've heard.
So there's a lot of good gems within that, but Stephanie, what do you think the number one thing is that's holding people back from reaching their own success?
I mean, aside from confidence, I think so many people seek like instant gratification, and most things, I mean, all things good in life take some work, and I think people just want to see results immediately, whether it's at the gym, business, success, I mean, all of it. You got to put in grit day in and day out, and you got to find the motivation even when you don't want to, and when you have 100 reasons to quit. I mean, that's when you have to push even harder on those days. And so I think we just live in a world where the people that have put in the hard work almost make it seem easy. So from the outside, it looks easy, but it's because they don't know everything that went into it. So I would just say people are scared to put in all of that time and effort and money and resources and just really stick it out to get to the other side of it.
They don't want to like invest in themselves.
And, you know, in many different buckets, like I said, financially, I mean, most businesses start, you know, it takes money to make money. And so there's just a lot of risk. And I think people don't have that confidence. And I mean, you do have to bet on yourself, but you have to go all in. I feel like you can't, you see a lot of people kind of try to start something. And if it doesn't take off within a month, I mean, I feel like the first 3 years are always tough, no matter the business. I don't think I've ever met somebody that said they had a huge amount of success within the first 3 years. When really, that's a long time, especially if you have people, family, kids counting on you. I mean, 3 years is quite the investment. So I think people just not keeping their eye on the goal and putting in the work to get there.
How would you encourage someone to become confident in taking that risk?
I mean, if you don't believe in yourself, nobody is. So I think there's nothing that anyone can tell you or say to you that's going to make you think any different. I mean, you can read all the books, you can listen to all the motivational speaking, but I mean, if you don't know in your core and you don't believe in yourself, who will? Nobody. So I think that is like a toxic trait. I mean, you can tell when someone is confident in what they do or passionate. I mean, you can see passion pour out of people when they are genuinely doing something that they love. And I think if you don't feel like that, you're probably not pursuing something that you should be, because it should come easy, really. I mean, getting up and doing the thing, whether it's, again, the gym, your health, your business, if it shouldn't be hard. I mean, are there hard days? Absolutely. But when you believe in what you're doing, that's the easy. Showing up is the easy part when you're passionate about what you're doing.
When you took both ventures with being, well, I wouldn't say being, but opening up an insurance agency along with Clean Eats, did you believe in yourself?
Oh, yeah. I mean, with Main Street, you know, I was kind of thrown into it. It wasn't again, it wasn't really planned. I was like, okay, well, let's, I didn't, which I don't think anyone is ever ready. I could have been way more ready. I was much more ready for Clean Eats, financially, emotionally, mentally. I was ready. It was planned. There's probably about a year and a half of work before the doors opened that I put in. So, and I learned all the things to do and not to do through Main Street. As much as they are different businesses, they are very similar in a lot of ways. So it was fun to recreate a business and start it from scratch, knowing what I had learned the hard way, and just put it all to work again.
Man, that's valuable advice right there. School of Hard Knocks.
Mm-hmm.
Can't say it enough right there. Dean, what do you think the number one thing is holding people back from reaching success?
I think it's a lack of introspection and a lack of an insatiable desire to disrupt your own patterns. I've been cursed, and it is a curse. Some might call it a blessing, but I see patterns all the time, right? And there's this pattern I always see, especially with people who are quote unquote suffering. And if you're not going after what you want, I would define that as suffering. And that's merely because your actions don't align with what your desires are, right? And usually the thing that keeps one back from taking these quote unquote action steps is, one, fear is it's such a lazy way of putting this, but I guess fear, but not knowing where to go or what they're looking at, really, right? So when I think about this, I think it all comes down to identity, really, right? So you have your current identity, which is what you're sitting there with, or let's just take this theoretical person that is scared to take that first step. Their identity is one of somebody who doesn't do that, doesn't take the steps, right? So they want to create this version 2.0 self, higher version self, new identity, if you will, whatever you want to call it. But they don't want to change anything. And then I think when they do want to change, it's like New Year's resolutions, right? Everybody fails. Why? Because they try to change too much too fast. They want to go to the gym 7 days a week. They want to eat chicken, rice, and broccoli every fucking meal, and that's just not sustainable. And the reason that they're not able to do this because they're throwing too much at it is because their standards aren't set in concrete. Most people don't carry themselves to a certain standard. And when I say that, I don't mean to be egotistical. It's just they probably just don't have any, So how do you know what your behaviors and actions need to be if you don't have at least one standard that you abide by and live to every day, right? And I think it goes in that order. You have to be introspective enough to understand the reality of your current situation, not the reality as you want it, before you start planning out and mapping out the reality that you want. It's like the you are here point in the map, like, hey, this is real, okay? If you don't want to be here, now we got to figure out what we have to do. And that's when it boils down to having the right standards and the right actions and behaviors in place. The one thing I've noticed is a lot of people stop there. And does it get them out of a rut and put them onto some quote unquote path of success? Sure it does, which is better than nothing, yeah? But they don't look at the result and see where it meets with what they really wanted. And even if they achieve the result, they don't reflect upon it to see where it really worked, where they could improve, and then adjust. Because I do think it's a revolving door, and you're constantly doing that. The problem is most people spiral down, right? I think if you're constantly running in this loop of identity, standards, behaviors, results, reflection, and adjustment, and making those course corrections in very intentionally, very deliberately, that spiral starts going up, and you start expanding instead of shrinking. But I really think it's the lack of disruption. If you want to change something, you have to disrupt your current patterns, and it's painful to do. And I think that's why most people back down off of it, because your central nervous system fucking hates it, right? We're still running on the same shit in our brains that our ancestors ran on when they were afraid of being chomped down by saber-toothed tigers. But now it's like us, instead of a saber-toothed tiger we're afraid of, we don't want to send that email because it might piss somebody off. And we treat that the same way. We get stuck in that fight, flight, or freeze frame. And that's what keeps people stuck, in my opinion.
That's a good point you bring up. You should be realistic about your goals, what you can accomplish, and how you can get there.
Mm-hmm.
Like you were saying, if you want to eat better, realistically, how could you do that while still enjoying it and not hating it?
Mm-hmm.
Sure, eating broccoli, rice, chicken is very healthy.
You just go to Clean Eats.
You can just go to Clean Eats.
That was not a paid advertisement either.
That was not a paid advertisement either. It's okay. Shout it out. I love when people shout out their own business or what they do because it's fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's a lot of
That's what
fun.
we're here for.
But it's not realistic. I don't like broccoli. I don't like vegetables. I'm a very picky eater. So if I wanted to make the right choices to eat better, how can I do it while not hating it?
Mm-hmm.
Same with podcasting. How can I be better little by little? What can I look at that worked and what didn't work, and how can I improve on it?
Mm-hmm.
What do the numbers look like? What did they look like from last week compared to this week? Being realistic is important, but also being delusionally
You have to be delusional too.
unrealistic
Absolutely.
is important
Mm-hmm.
too.
Yeah, but here's, and I do believe there's a balance, but I think this is where most people fuck this up, is on that scale of being realistic and being delusional, they're heavy on the delusion part, right? They're not understanding that at some point in time, a trade-off or a sacrifice needs to take place. So they go heavy on the delusion. Again, back to the New Year's resolution thing, go to the gym 24/7, 365, eat healthy every meal, so on and so forth, and then it all falls apart. The realistic component comes down to, like, I know if I'm eating shitty 18 out of 21 meals of the week, I'm going to eat good one more meal out of that week, and I'm going to do that for 2 weeks. And then the next 2 weeks, I'm going to do 2 more good meals. And instead of going to the gym 24/7, 365, I'm going to make it to the gym twice a week, you know? And then intermittently increasing that threshold of pain, where you finally increase that pain tolerance so much that it's not pain anymore, it's automatic. And this is where I believe the identity changes. You used to be this person who wasn't fit, athletic, healthy, so on and so forth, but now it's automatic. It literally is part of your identity, and now you are that person, right? So you have to keep it realistic in terms of the small steps you need to take that can keep it simple and sustainable. And somewhere on that spectrum, you have to slide it a little bit more and more towards the delusional side so you can really take it next level, right? And that's where the realistic component really comes in, is being realistic and saying, I'm not going to do all this shit right away. I know I'm not. I've tried it before. It didn't fucking work. So where can I adjust? Bring it back a little bit so I can stay with it and get the result, outcome, achievement that I want.
Man, that's powerful. I think that's very important what you said, because you should be uncomfortable. You should be comfortable in uncomfortable situations, in anything in life. The gym, grinding away 8+ hours towards your dream, knocking doors, sales. It's how you're going to get better and grow. So it's super important for the business owners, for you two. I got a question that kind of trickles back into what you were talking about, but in a different way from the beginning. And that question is, the first time you hit uncertainty in business, how did you manage your mind? Stephanie, I want you to go first.
I mean, I think really the only thing you can control is your reaction. I mean, there's uncertainty every damn day. I mean, whether it's, I mean, just when I think I have it all figured out with, there's something new. And I think just how you react is really the only thing you can be certain about. And I don't think that uncertainty ever goes away. Obviously, there's minor inconveniences and there's huge problems, but I think how you pivot from that speaks volumes, and not only for you, but for your staff or for the people around you. Really, is kind of how you handle that. I don't know if I answered your question, but I mean, the only thing you can control is yourself and the way you react to a situation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think just keeping your eye on the end goal and the motive, I think, kind of just keeps you on the right path.
Yeah, I don't think there's a definite answer for everybody. I think everybody's answer is different in their own way. And you kind of pointed out something that is also very important in entrepreneurship and when you're running a business is, you didn't say it, but this is what I took from it, being a leader, right? If you can show people that you can overcome this uncertainty, then the people below you, whoever you have in your staff or in your circle, can look at that and take value from that. So, leadership, very important. Very
I
important.
mean, I always say, like, never let them see you sweat, whether it's customers, employees. I mean, take it home and handle it. But I feel like people look up to you as a leader, to be unshakable. And are there some days that are easier than others? Absolutely. But I think how you handle it and how you teach them to handle it, I mean, just keeping everyone calm really is, I think, the only way to overcome problems or uncertainty or, I mean, really, and I think that carries over to any aspect in life, not only just business, but, I mean, whether it's health, I mean, things that you can't control, it's just, you pivot and you move on. There's no reason to dwell on it. I'm a problem solver. I don't like focusing on the problem. I'm always trying to figure out, okay, how do we fix it, and let's move on.
That's a skill set in its own, is being calm in uncalming situations. But you also said, never let
them see you sweat.
Never let them see you sweat. What about cry? Do you let them see you cry?
I bottle up those tears, and then I usually cry behind closed doors. I'm not very emotional,
man.
but I do have these like emotional purges from time to time.
Okay.
But they're usually solo. If you see me crying, send help.
Send
I'm not a
help or
crier.
send
Yeah.
hugs.
That too. You probably need help and hugs. All the hugs.
I think hugs are better.
Yeah. I usually cry when I'm mad, but I don't get mad too often. But when I'm mad that I'm mad.
And then you start crying and you get mad because you started crying. And you're like, no, I'm
Get
not
it
sad.
together.
I'm mad. Right. I hate that.
Yep. But
I've never experienced that, but I like sometimes I like to cry in front of people. It shows that you're okay with being vulnerable in an open environment. And that's also something I want the world to know, is that it's okay to be vulnerable and open up and cry and talk about these uncomfortable thoughts you're having in the back of your head, because too many people are taking their lives, or too many people are bottling it up, and they don't show it, they don't talk about it, and it's so sad and it's so frustrating. And if you can be that person who takes that initiative to show your emotions to strangers or to friends, who knows if that'll change them or the world. So I have a lot of goals with this, but that is one of them. Dean, the first time you hit uncertainty in business, how did you handle your mind?
Uncertainty, the first time. I don't remember. Let me backtrack on this. I've never really thought anything was certain. And honestly, I don't think anything is. I could leave here, get plowed by a car, I've always kind of looked at it in terms of probabilities, right? So because I've done it that way, when something kind of came out of nowhere and I was hit with uncertainty, I think it made it a little more palatable. And I think about it in terms, so when it does happen, I think, what would make it unreasonable that the probabilities exponentially go up if I do these certain things, right? So to what you guys were talking about, remaining calm, when the shit's hitting the fan, I think is a big one because, and again, it kind of goes back to the central nervous system. If we're in a upregulated state and we try to make decisions from that state, we rarely make the right one, right? We rarely do. So I think it's important to take a step back, as it were, get quiet, change your physiology and your state so you can make a better informed decision on how you handle that uncertainty. And then inverse thinking has worked a lot for me too. So not what can I do to make sure everything goes right, but what would happen if I want this desired result, what are the things that could 100% ensure that I won't be successful doing it, right? So I think about those things. So let's just use the gym as an example. If I know I want to lose weight, body fat, increase muscle, so on and so forth, what would make damn sure I couldn't hit those goals? Well, I'm eating like shit every day, right? I never go to the gym, or I never move, things like that. And then you remove those things. Now, when those things are out of the way, your probability of hitting the goal or desired outcome you wanted exponentially increase, right? So I kind of take a balanced approach on that. What are the things I need to do? But then also, what are the things that would ensure I fail miserably at this? Figure out what those are and try and get them out of the way.
So taking a look at both sides, keeping calm, but also keeping your mind right, essentially. Okay. I like that answer.
Well, not just your mind, your body too, right? Your body keeps the score. You know, you see people with aches, pains, all this stuff all the time. They're not necessarily doing anything different in their physical component, but they're wearing stress, you know, like a fucking jacket. And they have all these aches and pains and all these anxiety levels, cortisol levels are stressed. And I think the mind is a manipulative fucker, right? I've battled with this a lot in the past and recently kind of figured out what works for me to deal with that. And it starts in the body. Like, what is my body telling me right now? And again, it comes down to just kind of being quiet and actually taking the time to sit with it for a minute, because we're always doing something. There's so many fucking distractions out there, you know, and the distracted mind can't focus. So you have to be intentional about that. Okay, I'm stiff here. I feel a little nauseous. My hands feel a little clammy. What is that telling me? Well, I'm not normally like that, so it's telling me something. And then I just pay attention to the body, to what it's telling me first. And then just by doing that, it takes all the distraction away from the mind. So when I finally get to the mind component and I can actually think clearly, you know, I've kind of removed the debris and I'm able to think a little more critically, right? But you have to find that mind-body connection. And, you know, we're always rushing to strategy, right? So something uncertain hits us, we want to go to the fix. What's the fix? And that's usually the worst thing you can do, because again, you're in an upregulated state. So whatever you try to do probably won't be the wise thing. So you have to get your state correct. And then you can kind of get into the story of what your mind and your body's telling you. Once you get that cleared out of the way, realize that story's probably bullshit, you can start moving to the strategy. Okay, now how can I correct this error or deal with this external situation, circumstance, or person that's bugging me?
It's like man, it's not coming to the mind, but it's, I don't know why I'm thinking puzzle or like a roadmap you have to follow. You got to put it all together, you know, take small corrective actions to be able to get the outcome you're seeking. I like that answer. Raven, even though they're business owners, you're getting into a different career that could be totally uncertain. Although I think any dream is achievable. Being in the Denver area, I'm not familiar with that kind of avenue, and what it takes to get there. So how do you feel about, I guess, the uncertainty when you're getting into this career, and how do you go about facing it and trying to overcome it and getting to that next step?
I don't know. Kind of like you were saying, there's uncertainty in everything every day, and how you react to it is a huge part. I always say life is 20% what happens and 80% what, like, how you react to it. So having like a clear, I guess not like a clear mindset, or even like a strategy of like how this is what's going to happen even if things go wrong. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think just how you react to it is really a huge part of facing those daily uncertainties. Because in any field, any dream, you're going to face those every day. So as long as I always say, like, that plan for the best but prepare for the worst. Like, you have to, hope things go great, of course, but because you never know, you have to plan for that. You have to prepare for that. I mean, you have to know what moves you're going to make if things go wrong.
That's a fair argument. I'm gonna be the devil's advocate here. I've heard that quote many, many times. I'm gonna say where I'm at in life right now with what I'm doing, I don't believe in it.
Which quote?
Plan for the best, prepare for the worst. Just because if you're working towards this, you're grinding day in and day out. Yeah, you're going to have some shortcomings. The worst is going to happen. You're going to fail. You're going to fall flat on your face. But I'm not going to plan for the worst case scenario, because sure, a worst case scenario might happen. And maybe it is good to plan. Maybe it's just the 23-year-old young man in me who's just so ambitious, who's like, I'm going to get to where I'm going to go. I'm going to get to the top, no matter what it takes. That kind of sounds egotistical, but I'm sure you guys get what I'm picking up, what I'm laying down here. I'm planning and I'm building for the best case scenario, but I know I'm going to fail. I know I'm going to fall flat on my face. I know the worst case scenario is going to happen, but I'm not going to plan for that. I'm going to just take it as it comes, build and grow from that. So I see where you're coming from, and I understand that quote, but I'm just so ambitious. I'm so in love with the grind, even though it's tiring and tedious at times. I want to fail. I want to fall flat on my face. I want this worst case scenario to happen, so that way I can take a step back, get back on the saddle, and keep riding that horse into the sunset.
Well, I think that's a common misconception with that quote, is that a lot of people take it as you're taking your eye off the ball in terms of what you want to happen in terms of success, and you think you're literally going out of your way to plan for failure. Whereas the quote is actually saying essentially what we were talking about. Not being naive enough to not know that the shit's going to come off the rails, right? And then doing what everybody on this panel kind of said, how you handle it, right? That is kind of the preparation, not necessarily having like a spreadsheet or document that says if this then that, when this goes wrong or this goes wrong, this goes wrong, this goes wrong. It's how do you handle it? And again, what is your response and or reaction to it? If you're preparing for it, it's coming. So it doesn't catch you completely by surprise. And when it does, you were prepared for it, you were aware that it was going to happen, and you probably make wiser decisions. Because again, it kind of comes down to that whole state thing too. If you know it's coming and it does come, it does in fact come, you're in a more regulated state. Whereas if you were just like I was when I was young, naive enough to not think shit wasn't going to go wrong, and it does hit, that's when it really sucks. So I think that kind of gets misconstrued with that quote. Although on your side of things, I also kind of have that same mentality, like burn the fucking boats, man. Burn the fucking boats. And then only being 23, you have a good mindset in that you want to fail. When I was young, I didn't want to fail. I didn't want to fail at all. That was the last thing I wanted. And it wasn't until I was upwards and into my upper 30s that I was like, oh, I need this shit. I need to fuck up so bad. And then it wasn't until I was damn near 40 that I started to not look at it as failure and started to really look at it as what is life trying to teach me here as a lesson, you know? So you're way ahead of the game there.
Oh, I appreciate that. That goes back into the dirty laundry, right? You know, you got to fuck up in life because life is trying to teach you certain things. And maybe you fuck up more than once. I've fucked up more than once. It happens. You just got to humble yourself, hop back on the saddle, keep going, and learn from it. Most people don't learn from a first DUI, a second DUI, a 14th DUI. I'm lucky I came out unharmed and, you know, I got what I got. But after a second one, you know, that is an eye-opener and it's a wake-up call. You know, be smart. It's okay to have fun. It's okay to go out, party with your friends. I'm young. I think it's okay. Be mindful. Don't be stupid. A lot of people are being stupid. And then it leads into, you know, 4th or 5th DUI. And then they're in prison and they're like, man, you know, this all could have been avoided. So you got to fuck up in life to learn. And maybe it is me being naive, being 23, and I'm like, man, I don't want to plan for the worst case scenario because I see the best case scenario. But maybe I should. Because I hear people more mature, older than me, who have life experience. And I'll put the example of, you know, if you can live comfortably for 6 months with a financial cushion and not have to work, or if something happens, you have that financial cushion, you're planning for that worst case scenario. So in a sense, you know, it's good. I see both arguments here. Maybe it's something I have to look within myself and do some reflection and really ask myself, you know, where can I learn from this? What can I take from this and how can I implement it within my own life? So I'm not saying that's a bad quote. I just
have a different like perspective
yeah,
on
different
it.
perspective on it.
I mean, that's okay too, you know.
Yeah. Man, I heard a quote. It hit me. It says, where you're going is not as important as who you're growing into. And man, that hit deep. That hit deep. I want to hear you guys' point of view and how that relates in your own life. Raven, start us off.
I like that quote because I've seen mostly on social media how people start to act different once they get some money, you know, like once more money comes, they become more selfish or, you know, more rude. So it's not really where you're going, because you can go a lot of places with a lot of money, but it's about who you become. And a lot of people lose that aspect. They lose themselves and all of the money and the wealth that they've getting, which isn't bad, but I think some people really just lose themselves in that. I think how that relates to me would be like, I wouldn't say like a rough past, but, you know, I used to, you know, drink a lot, do a lot of drugs, and growing up, not doing that anymore, being sober pretty much, which is great. You also have to think about like how you act as a person now, because when you're on those mind-altering substances, you're kind of a different person. So it's also important to just be humble, you know, because anything can happen, and growth is really important. But I like that quote. Where did you hear that, if you don't mind me asking?
I saw it on a podcast, and I won't speak too much because this is all, you know, my own discussion. And I take what I hear that resonates with me into further discussion with others to pick their brain. If it resonates with me, I feel it'll resonate with other
others.
people. And I'm glad you brought that up because I've been following you on social media for a while, and I saw one of your story posts today, and excuse me, it says, "I'm about to be rich anyways, so I don't give a fuck."
I did. Yep.
Can you tell me a little bit about that? How does it make you feel seeing something like that? Knowing that, yeah, it would be awesome to be rich. It would be awesome to make a lot of money. But you got to take action. And within your own life, how do you feel about that?
When I think of rich, I don't always think of just money. I think having a good support system means you're rich in life. I think having something that you bought all on your own makes you rich in life. Having waking up every day makes you rich in life, honestly. So when I see rich, like, I don't necessarily think money. Being like, I'm gonna be rich anyways pretty much means like I'm gonna get what I want anyways because I work for it. So I don't care what you say. I don't care how you view me. You are in control of your own emotions, of your own destiny. Like, I'm gonna do what I need to do. I don't care what you like. If you're not, like, you're either on my side or you're not. Like, I don't care what you have to say if you're not on my team. I'm gonna be rich in life regardless. That's kind of what that post
I see where
meant to
you're coming
me.
from. I see where you're coming from. And man, that's another powerful statement because there's different versions of someone's richness. But I'm going to hand the reins off to you, Stephanie, and we're going to go back to that quote. And it says, "Where you're going is not as important as who you're growing into." How do you feel that relates to you within your own life or your own experiences?
I think one goal for me has always been like creating a life I don't feel like I have to escape from. I feel like that plays so much into, substance abuse, or there's so many people that success means buying a bigger house or a car, or do we all want to travel? Sure, we all like to go places, but I think, creating a home, whether it's in your four walls, like she said, a support system, those kind of things, when you are very intentional with all of those things, you don't have to escape. And I think that kind of plays into who you become, along the way. What I wanted 10 years ago is not what I wanted 5 years ago, and that's not what I want today. And I think people get so set on like setting these goals, these long-term goals, and then forgetting that it's okay to change your mind. It's what is important to me today has changed. My goals change on a daily basis. I'm obviously always working towards being better and growing and evolving, but that doesn't always have to be. I think people really get wrapped up in like some grand goal or like mission that they have to be on. But I think enjoying your day-to-day life is so important, and enjoying the grind, enjoying the hard part, enjoying friends and family and all of that. And I think if you're very intentional with it, the people you meet along the journey, that's what life is about.
Man, that hit me right here in the corazon and maybe in the jellies, because that's important. It really is. You gotta enjoy the ride. It's not about where you're going, but who you're becoming into. Are you happy at the end of the day with yourself?
Absolutely.
Are you someone who writes their goals down on a daily basis?
I go through these waves, which I think, seasons, I think, and I don't beat myself up over it at all. There's probably, months where I'm very intentional about it. And then there's times where I don't write anything down. And I just kind of lean into that. And I think letting go of that, I think people think they have to do the same thing every day. And if they miss a day that, and I just kind of, no 2 days look the same for me. As hard as I try. Being between businesses and mom and life, and I give that grace and I just lean into it. And I think that's freed up a lot of mental for me. But yeah, I do sometimes, but not all the time. So depends on the day.
Mm-hmm. Dean, I'm going to throw the reins off to you now with that quote. And how do you feel within your own life experiences that you can relate to it?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially being a little older now, having the benefit of more life experience. I've hit the majority of the goals I set out to hit, and almost every one, when I hit it, I was expecting like cupcakes and rainbows to shower down from the heavens and all that, but it was like, it's just another fucking Tuesday, you know? So in terms of where you're going, I can see why that individual said it's not as important as who you're growing into or becoming, right? The person that you have to become to achieve these goals should be the prize, right? I think it was Jim Rome. He had a quote similar. He said, if you're a little bit lost and you don't have a goal in life, make it your goal to become a millionaire, not because of the money, but because of who you become to achieve such a goal, right? I do believe that entrepreneurship is probably one of the best self-development courses you could take. You know, you have to, and again, it goes back down to the whole identity thing. You have to become a person capable of achieving these goals before you hit the goal. And I don't think you can hit the goals if you don't become that person along the way, you know? And I just personally feel that's how it is. So in terms of the quote, again, I think who you become is far more important than what you get out of it from an external standpoint. I think the internal component outweighs it by far. By far.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I wasn't always that way, you know? Especially when you're a startup and you're just going, it's like, let's just make this money, make this impact. And, you know, but you just don't know what you don't know until you start doing it repeatedly. And then you have the benefit of being able to look back at like, oh shit, I did that, you know, like I became somebody capable of achieving this goal in terms of the network I cultivated, the skill sets I cultivated, the monetary reward I cultivated. Those things are all nice, but you wouldn't have been able to do it if you didn't become the human that could.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot to dissect from what you just said. One of them is, I've heard that quote before, don't become a millionaire to become a millionaire. Become a millionaire to learn about yourself. And to answer your question, Raven, it was from the Jay Shetty podcast. Well, he has his own podcast, and he was interviewing Kevin Hart, and they were kind of having some discussion, and Jay Shetty said that, and it resonated with me. So I thought it was important to share that within this platform and see people's different point of views, because I do think it's important to love yourself instead of always being on the grind, you know, being a mom. Dean, do you have kids?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important because then you set that example for your kids that, you know, it doesn't have to be about money all the time. You gotta love yourself, be a leader, you know, set that example for your kids that you should just be you and love who you are along the way and who you're becoming instead of what you're doing. So it's powerful. It speaks volumes, and we'll go into more discussion about that. But I have another example or quote, whatever you want to call it. What I take from other people's discussions, I think would be a very good discussion to also have on my own platform, because like I said, if it resonates with me and I'm able to implement it within my own life, I feel it can help someone else. So I guess feel like it's an obligation in a sense to share it with people and get their point of view. So there's There's this saying or quote. It's kind of a little longer narrative by Simon Sinek. Have you guys heard of Simon? Good old Simon.
I haven't.
Man, no.
Mm-mm.
I'm sure if let me pull up a picture. You probably have seen him on many platforms on social media. He is a very big, I want to say, public speaker, but he's been on multiple platforms, and he's so inspiring.
Have you ever heard about a book called Start With Why?
I have heard
not.
that.
That he's the author.
Oh,
Is he?
okay.
This guy right here.
Oh, yes. I have seen him before.
I always love watching his stuff because he keeps it real.
Drake. Mm-hmm.
And he keeps it on a very empathetic, human-based level. So this is what he says. He says, I would rather fall short of a big goal and consider myself a failure than to lower the goals to the level which I can accomplish all of them just so I can feel like a success. Dean, what do you got to say for that?
I think it falls on that realistic / delusional spectrum again. You know what I mean? I think you have to be a little bit delusional to and ambitious enough to have a goal so big that it makes you shit your pants when you think about it. Right? So when I hear that quote from him, that's immediately where my mind goes. And in terms of the psychology or the mental component behind it, when you give yourself layups, high percentage shots, easy goals, just so you can say you've achieved something, it's kind of, well, I compare it to like a task list, a to-do list in the day. A lot of people do 10 or 15 different tasks, but none of them move the needle, really. It's like something came up, so I write it down and I check it off, right? And you look at the end of the day and it looks like you did a bunch of shit, but you really didn't do anything in terms of productivity or really, again, moving that needle. Same thing with simple goals. If you know undoubtedly that the possibility or probability of you hitting it is going to happen, when you do hit it, you don't really feel too much. But then again, I don't really feel too much when I do hit a big goal either, So, but I think if it's so astronomical and you miss it, you're still going to hit something a lot better than this half-ass goal that you set out to achieve just to say you did it.
Mm-hmm.
So I like the quote.
Man, that's deep, and that's spot on. I love it. Stephanie, what do you think about it?
I feel like some people really need the long-term goals or something big, but that's something I've always, I don't want to say struggled with, but I don't always have a goal set. I just feel like I don't ever need a reason to show up, or like most of my goals have been more short-term. Like I always know I wanted to open something similar to Clean Eats, but it was, I don't want to say it was impulsive, but like when I did it, I did it and I did it quick. But I feel like I don't need that goal or like motivation or written down. Like I will genuinely say like I show up 100% every damn day. And so I've never needed like a big goal like that, in any bucket of life really, whether it was fitness or business or some days but it's always 100%, even if it's not my best. So, I like it because I've never been one that needed, I don't know. I struggle with that. Like when people are like, what's your goal? I'm like, just fucking keep doing the best I can do every damn day. Like, I think that's a goal in itself, I guess, but I don't need the big,
that
the
5-year
big,
goal.
shiny. Yeah. It's never been something that, I've needed.
That's interesting because that's kind of uncommon.
Yeah. I know I want to do a lot and I want to keep showing up, and there's lots of things that I like. I think about things. I don't want to, there's other businesses that I would like to open, someday. So I do have goals, but I don't necessarily obsess with them, but I show up in life the best I can every day. And I think that just naturally works you towards those goals, whether you realize it or not. And so, I've never been obsessive over checklists and doing, and I know that I give 100% every day, and that gets me there every damn time.
So it starts for you with that thought and that impulse of doing it, and then just going all in on
Mm-hmm.
it.
Yep.
So let me ask you, when it came to Clean Eats, where did that thought start, and then how soon after did you take action?
Oh gosh, so I went to ASU for a semester. I was a nursing school dropout, but living in Arizona, like eating healthy was very easy. There was this was over a decade ago too. I mean, there was meal prep companies everywhere, the Whole Foods, the Sprouts. It was just very easy for someone to eat healthy who didn't want to cook and, meal prep themselves. So when I came back to Pueblo, it was really just a need that I saw in our community, selfishly for myself, but then for other people as well. And so, I'm not a nutritionist and I don't have any desire to be. So I knew I couldn't, not that I couldn't, but I didn't want to start it from scratch. I didn't want to come up with all the recipes and the ideas and do it on my own. And so when I financially was able to invest into a franchise, I knew where my finances were. And one night I just stayed up looking at different options, and I filled out the inquiry form and was on a flight like 2 weeks later to North Carolina to go to their Discovery Day. It felt right. I loved their story, their mission. You could see their passion, but between the CEOs, and so that was in September of 2025, and we opened our doors, or September of 2024. We opened May of 2025. So, pretty damn quick.
That's awesome. I love that, because seeing the progress from that specific location to where it's at now, night and day difference. For someone watching who is interested in starting a franchise, was it, hoop after hoop you had to jump through, or was it a pretty straightforward process when you decided to inquire about it and then start it?
I can only obviously speak on the behalf of Clean Eats. I don't know how other franchises work. Obviously, I'm sure there's a lot of commonalities between them, but one thing I admired about Clean Eats is, they interview you too as much as you interview them, and they only want people that live the lifestyle and represent their brand. If you walked in, you could walk in with millions of dollars cash to buy their franchise, but they only will allow people to open one who they think like inhibit all of the qualities that they live on. And so I think that, for them to believe in you as well, aside from money and being able to pay all the fees and do the things. But I think too, one of the things they preach is that, you could have no restaurant experience, but they do give you all the blueprint. Is it easy? Absolutely not. You still have to be in your community. You still have to put in the grit. You don't just open the doors. And I think that's probably been the biggest pet peeve, I guess, with opening a franchise, is people really discount how much work goes into it. I can't tell you how many times people will be like, oh, this is a franchise. And they're like, oh, it's like they discount all of the, work that you put into it. And they're expensive. They don't just give you the keys and let you go. So I think people, and there are different franchise models, so I can understand it, but they give you the tools, but you still got to implement them, and they don't hold your hand. They're there for you if you need it, but they don't baby you and do all the work for you. So,
Yeah. I thought you were gonna.
I was like, I think I answered the question.
Yeah, you did.
I could keep going, but I think that's, but it's nice to be a part of like-minded individuals. Everyone has a passion for what we do. And you feel that and you see it. And it's been pretty cool to watch, now that we've been open over a year, just the lives that we have changed, and not only the weight that people have lost, but the time that we've been able to give back to them, not having to meal prep, and just give them that time to do things that is more valuable, just use their time for different things. So it's been a very humbling experience.
Did you look at different franchises, or did you solely have your mind on Clean Eats?
So I had looked at a few online, but Clean Eats was the only franchise that I actually flew out and met them, and but it just felt right. I loved their story. I could see the passion again. I loved how they started. You could look up their stories online. I won't elaborate on it too much, but I think being a part of people like, that started with a tiny little cafe and were living in the back of it for the first year while they started. I think I would prefer to be in business with people like that. There could have been a better meal prep company to be a part of. I don't know, because I didn't dive into it that much, but those are the people I want to do business with, that have been on both sides of it, and the people I want in my corner. So
That's awesome. Man, I'm sure it takes so much work to franchise a company, and so much out of pocket for that percentage you got to put down, just so that way the bank or whoever can trust you. So I imagine it's not easy doing something like that. And I think people have the misconception of when you're franchising something, it's easier. Like if I was going to franchise a Cane's, it'd be easier than just starting your own business. But hearing that explanation, there's a lot that goes into it that a normal person doesn't understand. They're not fully educated on the whole process behind it. So I appreciate you elaborating a little bit on that and kind of, schooling me up on your version of the School of Hard Knocks. It's very important. Raven?
Can you repeat the quote again?
I will repeat the quote again. So it's, I would rather fall short of a big goal and consider myself a failure than to lower the goals to the level which I can accomplish all of them just so I can feel like a success. How does that make you feel hearing that quote?
I mean, I like that quote. I think it's important to step out of your comfort zone, especially when it comes to setting and achieving a big goal. And knowing your worth. I don't think you should ever lower your standards or your goal to make yourself feel better, because when you finally do achieve that goal that you've been going after, you're going to feel much better than dimming your light, I think I don't know, I think it's important to step out of your comfort zone and keep trying for that goal, even if it seems unachievable.
How often do you step out of your own comfort zone?
I try to almost every day. I think it's really important, especially at the gym. Honestly, I'm always trying to learn new stuff or get a new routine down, which can be really nerve-wracking. Honestly, I'm someone who has a lot of anxiety, so I always feel like people are watching me, or I'm doing something wrong, and it's gonna be really embarrassing. So, trying to step out of that comfort zone and keep that main goal in mind, being it doesn't matter who's watching me. If anything, they're just going to be watching me succeed, watching me realize, oh, I can do it, and then watching me do it,
Mm-hmm. Let me pose this in a question that is geared towards modeling. How do you step outside of your comfort zone when it comes to finding different opportunities to take advantage of in Denver for modeling to kind of get to where you want to be?
That's definitely a struggle when it comes to finding new photographers or videographers. You definitely have to step out of your comfort zone when it comes to meeting new people, because everyone shoots different stuff. Some people will shoot, high fashion. Some people will shoot boudoir. You have to, if you want to be known as at least a model who does everything, unless you have a specific thing that you model for, you have to step out of your comfort zone when it comes to talking to new people. You never know what you're getting into or what shoot you have to do. But I mean, I wouldn't say put yourself in situations that make you uncomfortable, as far as stepping out of your comfort zone. Communication is definitely key, but that's a really big thing in the modeling industry, is stepping out of your comfort zone to try new things and communicate with new people. Because you can't just have one photographer. I mean, you can, but it's nice to have that experience throughout,
Mm-hmm. I'm unfamiliar of what it takes to be a model on, one of these high fashion magazines or be one of the top models per se, would you say you have to have a portfolio first to be able to bring to, let's say, the cover of, I'm thinking of Time, but they probably don't, have, that's probably a different magazine. Fora, is that a good example? Do you have to have a portfolio to bring to these people, or can you just, email someone or put your face to the name or put your foot through that front door metaphorically and be like, hey, my name is Raven. Is there any opportunity to model for this agency?
Well, having experience is definitely nice. Having a portfolio so people can see what they're getting into also, so they can know what they're about to work with. I wouldn't say you have to have a portfolio. I remember when I first started modeling, I would literally just message photographers. Like, I'd look through their work, and if I liked it, I'd message them and be like, hey, I'm trying to, I really am passionate about modeling. I don't really have many photo shoots under my belt, but I like your work. And a lot of photographers, it's called TFP, like a trade for shoot or a trade for photo, where you just, you work with each other for free, and it's a great networking opportunity. You get experience working with new photographers. You get photos, they get photos. So I wouldn't say you have to have like a portfolio. There's a lot of people who are willing to work with new models and get experience out for themselves. Like I said, great networking. But it's nice to have experience, especially if you want to get published in a magazine or speak to someone high up. It's nice to have experience.
Okay, I see. Well, thank you for that elaboration on that, because I don't know. But what I can tell you is you can be a model for one of my photo shoots.
Hell yeah.
Boom.
I'm down.
Connections, baby.
Networking.
Networking. I want to dive back into parenthood and being an entrepreneur while having kids. Do you think, what is your perspective on that? I shouldn't even say anything else. What is your perspective on having kids while being an entrepreneur? Dean.
Steph said a word earlier. She said the word seasons, right? And when I say that, what I mean by that is there are times and sacrifices that have to be made when especially in the past, haven't been able to be around my kids as much as I wanted because I was building something. I was leaving the house before they were awake, and I was getting home after they were asleep. And I battled with that for a while until I finally came to terms with it, That said, now especially, I truly value the quality of the time far more than the quantity, because there are some busy seasons, but I think the important part is making it count when you are together, and just being fully present. Excuse me, and investing in that time and what it is that they're doing and what you're doing. And with the benefit of hindsight, no regrets. But if I knew then what I know now, I probably wouldn't have sacrificed so much time. And when I say this, bear in mind, I wasn't away from them like all the time, But at the same time, I fucking love my kids. I love being around them. They're my little homies, So to not be around them all the time, it really sucked. But I also, I guess, quote unquote, would justify it by I'm building something here, that will benefit them at some point. But again, going back, I don't think I would have done it the same exact way. But it's an interesting deal. But the cool side of it too, it's not I like to tell people that I let my kids catch me in the pursuit of excellence, right? So there is something to be said, because kids don't retain what you tell them; they retain what they see. So if they see you going after something that you love, and, you know, sacrificing and doing these things, and you know, always in the, not always in the pursuit of something, but doing stuff more than just sitting on the couch and watching TV and, you know, all that stuff. I think it's massively beneficial for them, you know, to actively see their dad pursuing dreams. You know, I think there's something really powerful to that.
Yeah, it's very powerful. And you're presenting an image to your kids while they're growing up, right? Like you said, they don't look at what you're doing or what you say. They look at what you're doing. And I've seen a lot of what you're doing on social media with your daughter and how you're trying to teach the principles that you know to your daughter to be independent and self-sufficient. And I think that goes such a long way. And it's super powerful. You know, one business owner told me, he said, if it means losing your family and succeeding in business, drop the business. It's not worth your family. Although I am not at that point in my life yet. I don't have kids. I don't have a wife. So I don't know. I can't relate to that. But I can see where he's coming from. Stephanie, what do you got?
I mean, I've been blessed that with my two businesses, like I've been able to bring my daughter. I mean, obviously she's had school, and I mean, most of my clients that I've had with Main Street, I mean, I've had from before I was pregnant. So, you know, they watched me watch my daughter grow up, and I took her to the office with me every single day. I mean, I used to have a breastfeeding pillow on my lap, breastfeeding and typing and writing insurance policies. And so I think it was around when she was like a year and a half, I finally got like an in-home nanny, just because she wasn't getting the attention she deserved. And it was like I was being pulled in too many directions. But she was at that office with me every single day up until that age. But then I think too, just being like radically transparent with them about, you know, I don't ever just tell her like I'm going to work. You know, I talk about my day. Like she knows I'm here right now. Like, Mommy, when's your podcast? Yeah, I just think involving them as much as you can. I mean, she's been at the restaurant with me. People come in, you know, where's your daughter? She makes smoothies. And when she's at the office, she loves to get the paper out of the printer and hand it to them. And so, I mean, now not every business allows you to do that. But for me, I think, you know, teaching her, and again, like he said, they watch you, you know, and they know what you put into it. And I mean, I think they say, you know, kids establish their like financial, basically their view on finances between ages up until they're 7. Like by the time they're 7, they are already instilled with what they've, you know, what money means to them or what success means to them. So I think those early years are important. I mean, are there days where I think my biggest struggle is being present, like even when I am with her, you know, there's no clocking out as an entrepreneur. There's always something going, you know, there's always tabs open in the back of your mind. And so that's where I struggle, is even when I am with her. I mean, we could be in the middle of Disneyland and there's just, you know, what's going on at the restaurant? Is everything okay? I need to check my emails. And so that's one thing I really struggle with, is just completely being present, even in the moments I am present with her, and just detaching. But I mean, I wouldn't change it. And it's always, I love hearing her perception of, you know, things. And I'll never forget one day we were driving. She's like, Mommy, I don't want to be an insurance agent when I get old. I'm like, well, you know, why? She's like, it sounds stressful. I'm like, okay, cool, you know. And so then she's gone through, it's been cool to watch her evolve. You know, she wants to own a toy store. I think she only knows me as a business owner. She's never seen it, you know, me do anything else. So I think she's like, okay, I'm going to have to do the same thing, but what am I going to do? And so it's been cool that, you know, it was a toy store, and then it, you know, it always changes. She's on an astronaut kick right now, but, I mean, they watch everything. Even when you don't think they're watching, they are absolutely watching. And so, but I wouldn't have it any other way.
Man, that's beautiful. Brings a tear to my eye.
And honestly, man, that girl, she's gonna be way more bossy than me some days. Like when she comes into the restaurant, she gets on, like she'll be all over them, telling them what to do and telling them they missed a spot cleaning. I'm like, Ellie, like she's gonna be a tough one.
How old is she?
She's 6.
Oh.
So she's a hoot.
That's her restaurant, actually.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yep. But yeah, I mean, when you're pregnant or you have kids, people always offer their parenting advice, but there's only one thing that ever stuck with me, and someone had said, and I'll probably butcher it, but it was something along the lines of like, when you have a child, like you're bringing them into your life. I feel like so many people, when they have kids, obviously within reason, you have to, make some sacrifices and some changes, but so many people, I think, especially new moms, you see they wrap their whole life around nap time and, they have to eat lunch at this time. But I've always just incorporated her with my life and my hobbies, and again, within reason. But I think, especially as she gets older, I think building businesses that evolve around what you like, what fits your family is very important, something that aligns. Because, I mean, you only get one shot at their childhood. And so I think it's important to keep that in mind. If you do want a family someday, creating businesses that align with your family's values and things that you want them to be a part of. So, I mean, I feel like the people that are nurses, they go to work 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. They don't get to bring their kids. Their kids don't get to see the hard work they put in. You can talk about it, but they don't get to see you in action. And so as much as there's very hard days being a business owner and a parent, I think there's some things that they learn about, success, but also you as a person. And I think for me, it's created a bond that most people don't have with their children. And I love it. It's probably one of my favorite things of it all, really.
I can tell. I can see the passion and the joy. And yeah, I can, you're just radiating that energy.
Thank you.
And it's awesome. Do you think you're teaching your daughter more about business than any school system could ever teach them?
Oh, 100%, without a doubt.
Man, that says something. School systems, District 60, 70. I don't know who this is going to. All of them. It's not about the money. It's about the lessons you're supposed to be learning, that you should be teaching, and you're not teaching them. And to an extent, you're setting them up for failure. And that's a whole other discussion. But why I asked that is because, Dean, I saw your Facebook post, and I'm going to read it because I want your opinion on it. And you said, in school, we are rewarded by having the answers based on our ability to memorize certain topics and facts. How would the dynamic change if we were also, or even more so, rewarded for asking interesting questions? What kind of problems could we solve? What kind of students would we cultivate? Can you tell me a little bit about what you meant? What was going through your head?
Yeah. It's crazy the correlation I've seen between the educational system and even prison. They're almost the same shit. You arrive on a bus, you go to a room, you might leave that room for a while to go to another room. They tell you when to eat. You have to ask to go to the bathroom. A lot of schools, if you ask the teacher a question, they get frustrated. It's like, because I said so type deal. Often our kids are encouraged to rat their little peers out if they did something wrong, which I'm not saying they shouldn't be, shouldn't not do things wrong. Kids are going to do things wrong. But I think overall the system is extremely flawed in that we're not really cultivating the minds by asking the kids more and more questions or allowing the kids to ask questions on things they're curious about. We're presenting a curriculum in which they're rewarded or punished via a grade, an A or an F, based on their ability to memorize a lot of bullshit, a lot of freaking bullshit. It does have a time and a place, like everything else, and I think it's a great place for them to learn social skills and things like that, but I think it's exponentially flawed in that we're not teaching critical thinking, and oftentimes, again, punishing kids for being curious. And then if they don't do well in school because maybe they don't have a good memory, or maybe they don't want to memorize this stuff, they get labeled, right? They're either troubled kids or stupid. I remember the thing that really personal story. I think I was in like 7th or 8th grade. I didn't care for math. And we had this substitute teacher. He asked me to come up and do a math problem on the board, and I failed miserably at it. And I remember he told me in front of the whole class that I was ignorant, and at the time, I didn't really know what ignorant meant. I just associated it with stupid or dumb. It wasn't until I got home and asked my mom what it meant, and it just meant that I didn't know what I didn't know, but he called me out in front of everybody. But retrospectively, looking back on that, I kind of carried that label with me my entire life. I remember even being, in college, and I would always just say, oh, I just suck at math. I didn't actually suck at math, but that stuck with me, because I didn't do it the right way, or I didn't know how to do it based on how they taught us to do it. Kids learn so much differently. And kids are into different things. You see these kids with dyslexia, ADD, ADHD, and they get labeled, ADHD isn't necessarily a disorder. It can be a superpower, because the kids with ADHD, once they find something that they're interested in, they're fucking locked in. You know what I mean? They're hyper focused. But the school systems don't cultivate that. They label, and then you get on a track. You're either on the upward track, the maintenance track, or a downward track. And we're just kind of passing them through the system to ultimately, by the time they get out of it on the other end, their mindset is one that they've been labeled at. They're troubled, they have a disorder, they're stupid, they're dumb, they're ignorant. And it makes it really hard to find their footing in the real world. So my post was basically based on all of that and observations that I've seen from being in school, observations that I've seen from talking to and working with a lot of teachers and students. And it was a post more on observation than frustration, and asking the genuine question of, if we didn't just reward students for having good memories by stuff they memorized out of a textbook, but also rewarded them for asking really good questions, how would that change things? Because it's something I think on often, because my kids are all in school. They all do really well. But then this is where another conflict comes in. They all excel in school to a very, very high degree. And I'm like, shit. Like, they're just getting really good at what school has them do, and learning to play that game. Because when you do get out into the real world, you realize that's not at all how it works. Schools aren't really teaching the stuff that I think that our kids need to learn and know in terms of life skills and things of that nature. But it makes for an interesting conversation, and in a lot of cases, interesting debates, because you have the purists that think the school system is the way it should always be, but it hasn't fucking changed. Mm-hmm. Not one bit since its inception. And its inception was to cultivate good assembly line workers and soldiers. The school system isn't designed to create free thinkers. Really. This is what you learn. This is how you think about it. This is how you do it. Show your work. There's only one way to do it. I hope you have the right answer come the standardized test time. And if you don't, sorry. It's kind of a bummer.
Yeah. It reminds me of what you just said. Have you guys seen Dead Poets Society?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
God, I love that movie. So good. That's what it reminds me of.
Mm.
What do you think, and this is for everyone, the school system should be teaching?
I remember people are always like, school doesn't teach you like important stuff. I had this one class in high school where they actually did teach you like how to file taxes, how to like apply for an apartment, how to buy a house. And I thought that was really, really cool. But I think they only had it for like 1 year, and then they got rid of it. And then the teacher actually ended up getting arrested. But they don't have that course anymore. And I think that would be something that'd be really important to put into like a school, on like not just the Pythagorean theorem stuff that's actually going to be useful in the future, like filing taxes, applying for a place, anything to do with the car, insurance, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. That's fair. Stephanie, what do you think?
I mean, I mean, one size doesn't fit all. I mean,
No.
I think there should be some evolution, and I think each kid, I mean, obviously you can't customize an education system based on each individual kid, but I mean, I think there are at least, you could probably come up with 10 different buckets that kids kind of fit in, based. And I mean, I thought I was going to be a nurse when I was in high school. So, I think, but I was in some extra programs that kind of showed me that I maybe didn't want to. But I think, I mean, evolving is huge because, I mean, with AI and just everything else, I don't think that the school systems incorporate, I mean, like he said, they're based on super, super old traditions and values. But I think letting kids tap into things that they are interested in and not, labeling them and putting them in, the ADHD categories and making them feel different. So how you do that, I don't know. I'm sure it's easier said than done. And I think you do. I feel like it has become a little more normal. You're starting to see these magnet schools that kind of attract kids that may have different, I guess, gifts or things. And I think showing them that, because so many people go to college for things they think they're interested in. I mean, example for me, like I went to nursing school and it wasn't what I wanted to do. Thankfully, I learned that early and dropped out, and I didn't, finish and have all these student loans. But you see so many people changing their mind and getting themselves in debt because they don't get to have those real life experiences in school because they are just on such a straight path and they don't get to think freely of what they may want to or not want to do. Because I think finding out what you don't like is just as important as finding out what you do like. And so I think they should definitely throw in a lot more of that real life experience, because some of these kids get out of school and they're clueless. I mean, I think even I remember my mom talking about when she was in school, they had to take swimming and home ec. And I mean, a lot of that stuff is gone and I think should be put back in, because I mean, some of these kids, they know how to take a test and that's about it. But
Yeah, I agree.
I don't know the answer, but what we're doing is not working. I can say that.
Right.
That's fair.
And for
Dean?
some people it may. I mean, I feel like there are some kids that are complete bookworms and they go on to be textbook writers, and that's great. I think we need those people too, but there's got to be more variety.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I think, times are changing. And you can either change with the times or unfortunately get left behind. But there's a lot of good skills and essential skills you should learn growing up that are basic stuff when it comes to being an adult. And sure, writing, math, reading, all of this is good, but I don't know, like there's definitely a lot of stuff, like how to make good choices. Public speaking is a very big one that they should definitely pound into kids at a young age, because you're going to be put into situations where you're going to have to connect and network and mingle. And a lot of people are shy and don't have the confidence to do so. And it's such an important skill, because it'll help you in so many aspects within your life. But there's so many things. Dean, what do you think?
I want to preface this by saying that I don't think that the traditional school system is without value. I just want to make that perfectly clear. But the one thing it is predicated towards more than anything else is IQ, right? And I think that they need to introduce more EQ concepts, emotional intelligence, right? How many times do we see kids that are always throwing fits because they didn't get a toy in the store, this, that, and the other, so on and so forth. But teaching a little bit more on the emotional intelligence side, how to manage and process feelings, big feelings, things like that. Not just what to think, but how to think. I think it's such a shame that all of the cool, creative things that used to be in school have been stripped out. A lot of schools don't have gym, music, art class anymore, recess. And I think another big shame is these are very important years, up until and throughout high school, where the minds are the spongiest. And if we're wasting it just on memorization of things we read in textbooks, we are absolutely missing, a massive opportunity here. Another thing, I think the damn school day is entirely too fucking long. And then the copious amounts of homework kids have afterwards. Homework was designed as punishment. It was designed as punishment. If the work didn't get done in school, you had to do homework. Now homework is just standard issue, right? So not only are they at school for 6, 7, 8 hours a fucking day, my daughter who goes to Connect, sometimes she has 4 hours of fucking homework at night, and that should be family time. So in terms of not necessarily what they should be teaching, but it's also like, what could we potentially remove? Because I do think there's a lot, and man, there's too much bureaucracy in education, too much politic and too much bureaucracy, too much red tape. And I feel horribly for the teachers because they're hamstrung. They are so hamstrung as to what they can do, can't do in terms of this, that, and the other. So there's multiple avenues. And again, that's a podcast for another time. Like, you can do a whole ass, but ultimately, very long-winded answer of saying, I really think, emotional intelligence should be leaned on a little bit more than just the intellectual intelligence as well. But also the one thing I always thought would be fascinating is school to teach mental models in terms of, how to think, how to break things down and create frameworks and systems thinking. This is critical thinking that we don't teach, And again, kind of goes back to that deal where if you are a critical thinker naturally as a youth, you start asking questions to the teachers that they don't fucking know answers to, and a lot of them don't like that. A lot of them don't like that. But essentially those things I think are crucially important.
That was a really in-depth answer, and I really appreciate that because you brought a lot of things to light that I didn't even think about. So that's awesome. That's awesome. You have this perspective towards the school system, and you're able to share that and kind of give us and myself, a different perspective on what they should be teaching. So that was awesome. But we're gonna end this out with one piece of advice you would give to the viewer watching. And before we do that, I think it's so, I love the word awesome right now. I'm just like, so awesome. That entrepreneurs seem to have always this one thing, well, many things in common, but it's your mindset. It's how you view certain challenges within your life that are coming your way, and continuing to be optimistic and pushing through and accepting failure. And the more I talk to people who have similar perspectives and answers, the more I feel reassured that it's going to be okay. It's all going to work out. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I don't know if anybody in this room knows what the fuck they're doing. I'm just, like I said last week, I'm just taking the ball and I'm running with it. And wherever I go is wherever I go. I'm hoping for a touchdown. Well, maybe that touchdown in that end zone is, I don't know, a mile long and a mile deep. I have no clue if I'm running through Moab, if I'm running through the Sahara Desert. I don't know. Hopefully, I'm Superman and I can just run across the world with this ball. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just grinding my ass off, staying optimistic, and accepting whatever comes my way, but also believing in myself 100% and tuning out that noise, because it'll get to you. The negativity, the noise, the noise can be as simple as, if you're dating someone and your significant other is like, just be careful. It's like, what do you mean by that? Be careful. What do you mean? You're supposed to believe in me and be my cheerleader, and you're telling me be careful. That can be in a good way or a bad way. But if you're telling me that this is going to be 50-50, that 50-50 it might work, 50-50 it might not, well, I want you to believe in this 100% with me, because I believe in it 100%. There's no 50-50 in this. There's no, what if it does work out? What if it doesn't work out? It's like, all right, if I continue to water this plant, it's going to grow. When it works out, because I believe it'll work out. I'm not putting work in for it to not work out. Are you going to be right there with me? Or the noise, like parents or school teachers, like just getting inside your own head, just taking that risk, doing it, taking action. I kind of just left the viewer with what I was going to say. So I'll let you guys take the reins. Raven, give them one piece of advice that they can just soak in like a sponge.
As cliche as it sounds, I think something that's kind of just helped me is just don't give up, And I feel like that's that one piece of advice that like everyone gives, but it's so true. Like the moment you start to doubt yourself and the moment you just give up on yourself, that's, I don't know. I just consider that as failure when you just like fully give up on yourself. But even if it's just like the smallest bit of motivation or like the smallest bit of light at the tunnel, chase it, follow it, because you will see those results. Hard work pays off 100%. So just don't give up. Anything is achievable. And, unless your goal is like go to space without a suit, then that might be a little difficult. But just if you work hard and just keep your mind on the goal, you can achieve anything. Just don't give up.
Give me some. There we go. Stephanie.
To kind of piggyback off that, one of my favorite quotes is like, you can either be the victim or the victor. And I think that applies to a lot of buckets in life with like not giving up. I think no matter what you're facing, like you could either overcome it and learn from it, or you can fall victim to it. And I think a lot of people talk about the noise of everybody else, but I think more important than that is the noise within yourself. I feel like oftentimes people are so worried about what other people think or how people are going to react, but you really become the story you tell yourself on a daily basis. If you don't think you can do it, nobody's going to think you can do it. And so I think people get so wrapped up in what everyone else thinks and what success means to everybody else versus just really staying true to themselves, because when you silence the noise within yourself and you are confident in what you're doing, the rest really is easy. And so again, just you become the story you tell yourself on a daily basis.
That's powerful. Give me some.
You're far away, but virtual.
Come on.
High five.
Reach. Boom. You made it work. Teamwork.
It makes the dream work.
It makes the dream work.
There's the advice.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. All right, Dean, hit him with it.
Oh, shit. I think it's important to keep in perspective that we're all gonna fucking die at some point anyway. So if you're gonna be doing anything, whatever the hell it is, do your best to make sure that you're having fun doing it. You know what I mean? Like it's not always gonna be fun, but try to find the fun spots in it while you're doing it. I think we take ourselves and our businesses and all this shit way too fucking serious. And maybe that's because I'm turning 45 in a few days. And that comes with a little gray in the beard and a life of a lot of experiences. But I think back, there was a portion of my life I took way too seriously when I really didn't need to. And we get to make that choice every day, So I think keep the perspective where it needs to be. Like, this stuff's all cool, but don't take yourself or anything too seriously. It is important. Make sure you're having fun while you're doing it.
And that's real. Give me some. Ready? I'm reaching over.
Yeah.
Boom.
That was a good
Boom.
connection.
It was. Good connection right there. Introduce yourselves. Tell them where they can find you if you want them to connect with you outside of the podcast. Dean, go ahead. We'll start with you.
Dean Trinkline, don't look for me.
Don't look for him unless you're trying to get in shape.
No, you can find me on Instagram and Facebook mainly.
All right,
Yeah,
all right.
yeah.
Stephanie.
Again, Stephanie Burdick, Main Street Insurance, Clean Eats. We are on the corner of Union and D Street. Facebook, Instagram. Really don't have any cool taglines.
No cool taglines,
No.
but you can hook them up with that good insurance.
Yeah.
And then if you're feeling a little froggy and you got a little rumble in your belly, you know, go get some
Clean
clamitas,
Eats.
some food, you know, just trot on down the Clean Eats and get some food in your belly.
Hell yeah.
Raven, let them know.
Yeah, my name is Raven. You can mostly find me on Instagram at That's So Raven. It's kind of a weird handle. I might just like tag it somewhere, or on Facebook at Ray Shannon. So if you need a model for a shoot or a bartender, let me know. I'm your
Nice.
girl.
Nice.
Yeah, we got a lot of talent in Pueblo, but I think Denver's probably a good hot spot for that, for sure. Well, I just want to say again, thank you, everyone, for coming and sharing different point of views on different subjects and kind of just setting your ego aside and being in the same room with each other. Not a lot of people, even in the community, would be willing to sit down with someone either they know or don't know and kind of connect like this. So, you know, this is awesome for me and I appreciate it. So thank you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah.
For
Thank you
having
for
us.
inviting us.
Appreciate it,
Yeah,
man.
this was a good time.
Absolutely. It's Xander is the government name, but there's many names I go by, including Zandicky.
What about Zan the Man?
All right, I got some side eyes
That's
for
my
that.
ring.
All right, I like that one.
Yeah, I kind of told that story. Long story short, it was a nickname that was bestowed upon me by 80,000 viewers watching in a live chat, and someone threw it out, and then someone called it out, and I was like,
This
I
is who I
can-
am now.
I can rock with that.
Might be time to take a Xanax after that one.
Ooh,
It's bedtime.
It's Mimi's time. But this has been the All In Show. We went all in on a lot of different topics. And, you know, I hope you watching took just one piece from this podcast. And it made you feel hopeful for the future. So thank you.
Go all in.
And go all in. I like that.
go on.